make a move and the bunny gets it.
I said, put the bunny back in the box. Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
It's showtime.
Roar. Roar.
Colonel Ironsides here. 200 years I stood in the gap, fighting those who would harm my country. It was my honor, my sacred duty, so help me God. 9 times they took my life. 9 times I stood back up and made them pay. The freedom fighter I could handle anything, but someone betrayed me. I was ambushed, made mortal, rendered powerless, and retired. They passed an amendment that made me a civilian before I left the hospital. For 50 years I watched my country change. Watched its work while erasing me from history. The day I quit my job, I powered up and discovered they lied about that too. I'll remind them of freedom. I'll remind them of duty. I'll remind them of their oaths and who they serve. I'll remind them while I'm shoving it down their throats.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I wanna know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I wanna know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Hey there. Welcome to the Rabbit Hole. This is Cooper from Telepathic Bunny Comics. Let me I have a partner in crime today. Let me go ahead and bring him on as Daniel P. Riley. Well, he needs no introduction for most of you, so let me just bring him on. Welcome to the show, man.
How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem, no problem. You're the author of Just Said Die. I think you pronounce that. Just Said Die. Is that it?
Jisadai. Yes.
Jisadai. Okay. All right. Sorry.
Next generation or second generation in Japanese.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Along other whimsy verse stuff, you know.
Yeah, Legacy Heroes, my attempt at doing some superhero stuff, which I'll be reformatting into short form books that are half text and half comic book illustrations. Yeah, it's looking like a really cool project. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My first editor wanted me to do that with my book, but I determined to have a comic book. So but he liked my text so much. He's like, I hate to cut some of this out. I was like, well, comic book formats. Comic book format's different from my novel format. Which you can always tell when a novelist is trying to do a comic for the first time. There's usually there's an adjustment period. There really is. It's kind of like you're trying to cram all this into a small box, and it takes a little while to kind of translate your prose into imagery and figure out the balance there.
Yeah, there definitely is a learning curve. I mean, I did a comic adaptation of G Said I Won. We're working on finishing up the 3rd issue. And that first issue was me learning that transition, how to take my paragraphs and advise the artist that was working on it, because I can't draw anything but stick figures, on how to paint that world visually that I painted with words.
Well, it's like I was telling somebody, probably somebody that like writing a play script or a movie script would have an easier time than a novelist. I think the transition from being a novelist to doing a comic is like maybe the most difficult transition. It really is like apples and oranges, going from because the novelist mindset is you're juggling a whole lot of things at one time, and you have to understand where you are in the plot, and then reveal just as much as necessary to move the story along, but not necessarily show all your hand. But with a comic, there's a lot you can do visually that's just not available in prose. You can there's a lot of things that like Easter eggs. I always love Easter eggs when somebody puts them in a comic, and I go back and I was like, oh, this was it. James Rock, who did Magnificent Bastards, is he's the Easter egg king, I swear.
Nice. Yeah, that's very true. Luckily, I have a lot of practice with it, because my business on the side of the writing is to coach and edit other people's projects to help them get better. So I've worked with 100 people so far in the couple of years I've been doing this, on various things from scripts to novels to comic books. So I've gotten some practice on how to differentiate between them.
So what is the number one most common mistake you see, writing mistake that you're like, oh, I've seen this before?
Depends on the format. With novels, it tends to be a lot of telling instead of showing. With comic books, it's a weird thing to explain. So hopefully you can follow me on this. It's get the creator to realize that what they know is not necessarily what they're showing to the reader. So there needs to be context, especially in the visual medium.
Right.
They may put scenes in that make sense to them because they know what's going to happen 5 issues later. But that particular thing doesn't quite translate to a person who's just opening the book for the first time.
Yeah, sequential art is a really difficult thing to get the hang of. Knowing just what you can show, what's going to carry the story. You've got to be able to tell the story, even if they don't see a word balloon. They've got to be able to kind of follow it. If you can't do that, then a lot of people, they compensate by just like having gigantic word balloons with a whole lot of exposition in it, or or doing transitions. It's like, oh, what you're looking at is, it's like, well, you got a visual medium here, man. You got to be like, that information needs to be in the image, add a panel.
If you're going to put that much exposition in, you might as well just write a novel.
There you go. Exactly. And I see a lot of that. I've got a whole stack of books over here. One of the things that inspired me, though, is this one right here.
Ah, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's on the shelf behind me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this is John Bua, also known as John's Lone Box, the bearded one. This is a guy. If you ever watch his show, he's got a comic book shop in his basement. Okay, maybe probably the best stocked comic book shop I've ever seen. I mean, it's just like he's got a whole entire like room full of like long boxes. You know, he's got a toys, he's got like knickknacks. I mean, this is a guy who lives, breathes, and just loves the medium of comics. Okay,
Yeah,
and
his
so
collection is impressive.
it's incredible. But when he went to make this book here, this is not somebody who ever wrote a comic book before. But what did he do? He not only so he wrote his script, and then he found himself an editor to look at it, right? Anyway, because and I quote John, he's like, if the writing's not there, it doesn't matter if it looks good.
It's true.
And I get over and over and over again. I've gotten some beautiful train wrecks from indie comics. Okay, the one I'd always bring. Yep, I bring up two of them, like Starblades and Snowman, and Starblades is a little less known, but it's a book that is absolutely heartbreaking because it has no discernible. The world building is just beautiful, and it's almost like a Rankin Bass. It's almost like if you know,
nice.
It's like a Thundercats or a Silverhawks. You know, that kind of genre. And this was a book that I thought was going to change everything. And he even had like a cartoon along with it that he drew himself. And but then when I got the book, I later found out from the lady who was his editor that he fired early in the process. And I after I read the book, I was like, I know when he fired you. And she's like, okay. And I told her exactly when he fired her, because from that point on, there was no discernible story. It was
right
just
off
like
the rails.
vignette. It completely off the rails. And I don't know why he made that choice. I don't know. But the book is just absolutely heartbreaking. It could have changed everything. This IP could have just been the next big thing. And I believed in it so much. Go ahead.
From what I can tell, working with people, we're all working on very, very fixed budgets, especially those of us that are in the lower tier of the indie sphere. You know, there's hundreds of thousands of things that come out every year, and our one or two, maybe if we're lucky, three, are just a very tiny drop in that bucket. And we're doing it on our own budget. So like with the comic book, if you're not an artist like me, you pay someone else to do it, and you want to pay them well for their time, for their skill.
Yeah.
But it's a huge expense. It really is. And then on top of that, you have to consider the lettering, and then you also have to consider your script. And the unsung hero of any story is the editor, because it's the fresh eyes on the story that can point out the flaws that you can't see as the creator. But most often, unfortunately, the first expense that gets cut in favor of putting the money somewhere else is the editor.
Yeah, exactly. Fortunately, he didn't cut on his editor. I can't remember who the editor is right quick. Let me check right quick. But the thing that's amazing about this story is it's old school comic. I mean, this is somebody who just loves the golden age, you know, so much that
that's my joy right there. I love
golden
golden age comics.
Yep. Um, well, I don't know. I don't see it listed. I knew he had an editor somewhere, but I don't see it
We'll
listed.
have to
I
ask
think
him.
he had like somebody. I think somebody did it kind of like as a favor to him. I think it's why it's not on there.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
I do pro bono
it might
work
be.
sometimes for people.
There you go. But it's a really awesome story, and what he started with was the right character, and that's the biggest mistake I see made. If I don't care about anybody, I'm not going to stick with your story. You know, I'm
True.
just not. And it doesn't matter how well drawn they are. It doesn't matter if they're cool. It doesn't matter if they're voluptuous. If I don't like them, I'm not going to invest in your book. You know. Oh, hey Wookie. Hey man, welcome to the show. But you know, I see this over and over again. These beautiful tragedies. Like Snowman. You know, there's plenty of people. It has a lot of people that love it. You know, and all of them will say the art. I love the art. I love the art. Oh my God, it's a beautiful book. And but it was misery to get through. It was a slog. Okay. A gorgeous book. Absolutely gorgeous book. Okay. Don't get me wrong. The guy is an incredible artist. I think he's Del Keown level. But I mean,
Nice.
he's an old friend of EVS's from back in the day, and he is got game. Okay. However, the writing wasn't there. And so I'm just like going through, I'm supposed to invest in this story, and there's nobody likable, nobody I cared about. It was just like introduce person dies brutally, introduce person dies brutally, introduce person. Oh, there's his entrails all across the page. Yeah, lovely. Anyway,
Meat grinder
it
strategy.
was just got so many meat grinder strategy. And yeah, I mean, even in a slasher film, you gotta have somebody to care about. And
Yep.
I've watched slasher films where I hated everybody, wanted everybody to die, but then I kind of like root for the bad guy. I mean, if you're gonna do that, at least have a compelling bad guy. Go get him, Jason.
Absolutely.
I'm never rooting for. But it all comes back to the writing. Everything comes back to the writing. It's a big niche for trans comics, transhumans. Sorry. Thanks for clearing that up. Anyway, but I'm in the indie sphere. I'm backing books left and right, and I've got a few people like Dave Brink put something out, with Perfect 10. I know I'm getting quality product. He's so anal retentive on his writing. He dots every I, crosses every T. Sometimes
Good
it gets
man.
bogged. Yeah, sometimes it gets bogged down on the details. But
That's where
he's
your
somebody.
editor's supposed to come in.
Yeah, right. Get an editor, Dave. But anyway, here's a guy. I know a guy. Anyway, but
I'm happy to help. Just reach out.
There you go. Then you got some, Eric Nonotowski's one of those. The guy who does the book called Stump, Nathan Rosario, and but the reason why these books are like first day buys, is because of the character. They've got a character that I'm compelled that I want to read more on, and that makes
100%.
up for some of the writing. Yeah, sometimes it makes up some the writings maybe not there 100%, but I'm so intrigued by the character that I'm rooting for him so hard that I'm willing to read the book as soon as it comes out, and it all just goes back to how many things today have we gotten that have been like something that they updated, or brought back. And the original was like nostalgia. And then you watch this, and the writing is just so bad. And they updated it for a modern audience, and they just shoehorned it in where
Way
it
too
doesn't
many
belong.
of those things.
Way too many of those things. And it's like, hey, jingle keys. You remember this? Remember berries? But so you like this, right? You like this back then, you got it, you bought the DVD, so here's updated, and it's unwatchable. It's completely unwatchable. I would say Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, good example of this. What happens? They bring him back, but then they stick him with this woman who's like this obnoxious girl boss, and she basically runs roughshod over him the whole entire movie. And then at the end of the movie,
the main character has to be emasculated in some way in order to separate them from the new female lead. Yeah, it's a format, and that's what it is. It's a format, though. I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking risks, like Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter. Nothing wrong with taking a risk. Sometimes if you really work on the story, you can make something great out of a intellectual property that came before, as long as you really work on it. A lot of this stuff is it's sort of ham-fisted and intentionally made for cash, not for storytelling.
The intent. I would example of a good one would be Maverick. It come back from Top Gun, I was convinced that thing was going to be. I was like, why are they doing this? It's so long ago. But then when I watched it, and they took me there, and it's like, this needs, because I needed to know. I needed to know more of that story. I needed to know where he, last thing we saw, he was hugging the Iceman on the deck of the carrier, and then swelling music, and then what happened after that. I didn't know that I wanted to know the rest of that story, but then he brings it back, and he's this older Maverick. He's still a Maverick, and then he's like, he's got this whole angle with Goose's son, who I forgot was in the first movie, but evidently he was sitting on the piano in the first movie. I forgot that Goose had his son was on the piano. It's like, want to know where that kid went to? Oh, here he is. And it's like, it just extended the story. There was even this throwaway line about an admiral's daughter, and then he brought her back as the love interest in this one. Played by very
you pay homage to the source material, and you can really do something with it.
But it was the writing. The writing was everything in that. I mean, there's even a moment where he recreates that scene of Goose playing, creaming up the town, on the piano, and this time it's Rooster doing it, his son, and he's got some woman hanging on him, just like Rooster's mother was hanging on Goose. And he just has this moment. He's outside the club. They just throw him out, and he's looking in, and he sees that scene, and there's like this moment, but it's you don't really see him at the moment. You see her, who knew them both, watching that and knowing who that is, and she has this moment where she goes, "Oh no," and it's like she understood what was happening, because he wasn't really showing it on his face, but she knew how much he was gutting him, and because she knew, and she didn't say, "Oh no, he's seeing Rooster and remember Goose." No, she just showed it on her face that she knew what was going on, and she showed the emotion that he wasn't showing, and it was great
acting.
Great. It's great writing. Just great writing. It was like show, not tell, right? And it's like
exactly
somebody who was less deft with the writing would have had her give his whole entire monologue. And, why is he doing that? Oh, let me tell you exactly why he's doing that. And they just didn't like, people that didn't see the previous movie, we need to like read them in on this. No, they're like this. They'll just have to catch up. We're not going to feed it to them. They'll just have to catch up. And you get hand fed so much in this modern day. It's like the idiocracy. They just want to hand feed everybody every plot detail, and everything's got to be on the nose. And what makes a great written piece is that they don't insult your intelligence, and you can go back and read it again and find something, that you didn't even realize it. I've read novels, really good novels, like written by Robert R. McCammon, maybe Boy's Life, and I went and listened to Boy's Life like a month or two ago. I do that once or twice a year, so I've listened to this thing maybe 24 times, maybe, and then I was listening to it, and I picked up on a plot thread that I didn't realize was there. After all these years, 24 years, I've been reading that book or listening to that book, and I picked up on something that he had left in there, and he didn't reference it or anything, but it took a while. It took rereading to get there, and that's the beauty of writing. Let me get caught up here right quick.
And it's so much fun when you find those things too.
Alrighty. Oh yeah. It's like, yes, this is amazing. It's awesome. Okay. I think AI can open the door for more independent creators, so an artist can be a one-man show. Yeah, AI art. I think that's a possibility. Good
AI
evening. Just checking in
storytelling,
for
not so
OT
much.
tonight. Hey Wyatt, with you, man. Yeah, no. That's still an advantage you got. Does that mean DEI? Yes, and DEI is DIE. It needs to die anyway. Bring back meritocracy, for God's sake. The revamp of Ghostbusters was great. Yeah, not 2016, but Afterlife. Okay. Yeah, it has.
I mean, even Afterlife.
The idea like
suffered.
Snow White had a stalker. I like the idea. Yeah. Anytime Disney touches even its own IPs, right. Little Black Mermaid made sense to me. He's very sarcastic. He's being very sarcastic.
Yeah, I can tell. It's my kind of humor, sir.
Yes, I figured you'd get it, but I'm just saying it for other people that might not understand. Slimmer was my favorite. Okay, cool.
Hey, Raw.
Hey, welcome. So, what do you think is if somebody were to ask you, how do I tell good writing from bad? How would you answer that?
Oh, you just know. It's
right.
It's an instinct. You can just tell when a story is not right. Even with one of my books, Legacy of Heroes, is a superhero novel that I did I think 2 years ago at this point. Most of the whole thing was mapped out, but I did have a point in the writing where even I went to my own editor and I said, this I really am not sure about. Like, I could tell that it was not my best point. And I actually had a reviewer who read the book who said there was a point where I thought maybe he didn't know where his story was going. And I went, I knew it was there, but they saw it. And it was just an instinct.
Yeah.
You can, when you're reading something, you're consuming something. We have pattern recognition built into our genetics. We see specific things in our environment and we watch for them. So you can imagine that if something deviates that far away from what most people know as natural pattern, they're going to notice it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the things that gets denigrated or downgraded so much is people think that if you can skimp on anything, you can skimp on the writing. And
Unfortunately,
and that kind of gets like, yeah, it's like if you're gonna like, if somebody on your project's gonna be amateur, or if then you can do the writing is where you can be an amateur. And these people, they always love Image Comics, that first generation. And it seems like they always love that first generation. I'm like, name me 5 characters from that first generation of Image that's not Spawn. Anybody? Anyone?
no, I can't do 5.
Nope. But right. What the issue is was the writing was
come up with 3.
Maybe 3, yeah. Well, Savage Dragon and Spawn, and that's because they had so many comics.
Savage Dragon, Bad Rock, and Cold Snap are the only characters that I actually remember from the original Image runs.
Right. Yeah. Hold on a sec. RT says, hello, Daniel. I'm the Iron Age, Iron Sage. Okay.
Trying to usurp my throne.
Silverhawk. Yep. Valentino drew that. Right. But that's the thing, though. They remember the artist. They can tell you the artist. I mean, we all tell the artist, the Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and et cetera, so on, there, so forth. But very few people can like name a character that they didn't make it into the zeitgeist. And the reason why is because the writing wasn't there. Because they got away from Marvel and the editorial system. And they're like, well, we're free. We can like draw like, all these crazy panels. We can, we can just like draw whatever we want to draw. And then they figured out the editorial keeping them on task was the reason why books came out on time.
Yeah, that's true. I look at it this way.
But
it's imagine it's like a restaurant. The first thing that, if you're just walking down the street, the first thing that you see of a restaurant is what makes you want to walk in the door. That's the signage. It's the sign itself, the colors that are involved, what's on the windows. That's the art of a comic book. That's the cover of a novel. Yeah. What makes you come back repeatedly for more meals is the food that's served on the inside. And that's the storytelling. That's the writing.
But you can have a crappy mom and pops that looks run down. It looks like, like a ramshackle shack. But if the food is good enough, then it doesn't really matter to you. People will keep coming back. I got a local mom and pops around here that just stays packed out. And it's basically a truck stop that's been around since before I was born. It's I'm kind of old, but anyway,
exactly.
But
I lived in Texas for a year, and about 10 minutes away from the development that I lived in was this basically a rancher trailer with a wood porch that they built themselves and a wooden sign that was blue, and all it said was "Good Luck Grill." Like there was nothing special about it, and the name wasn't even that great. But my girlfriend specifically said, you have to go here because the food is excellent, especially the fried catfish. And I'm like, now you're speaking my love language. So we went in and tried it, and it was so good. I think I ordered from there at least every 2 weeks.
There you go.
because the food was so good that it made me come back. And
Right.
the place itself didn't look all that special.
Mm-hmm. But that, well, it's if you're going to like skimp on anything, if you're going to like maybe do something that if you got like if your budget only has room for one thing, don't skimp on the writer. Maybe get a cheaper artist. Your book will thank you later, because
True.
essentially what you've got to do is you've got to get somebody into your world, get somebody like in love with your characters, get somebody wanting to revisit, and you can always like upscale the art later. I mean, they do it all the time,
That's true.
remaster or whatever. But if you're Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, look at the first books that came out. The art was rudimentary. Okay.
Yep.
The art was nothing to write home about. And it was black and white, and they like printed it on a Xerox machine. The first ones, and sold them at cons. But the characters were awesome. The world was unique. And even the title of it, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Yes. And so that's why we know Eastman and Laird now. And that's why they had a cartoon within 8 years of selling them at cons from a Xerox machine. Within 8 years, they had a cartoon, and they had a live action less than a decade. And the reason why is because everybody knows Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Donatello, and Raphael, and Splinter. Everybody knows them. I just named 5 off the top of my head. I couldn't name 5 Image, remember? I could name off. I can name the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Master Splinter. I can name Shredder. I can name April. I can name Casey Jones. I can name characters. Why? Because they had characters. Characters, right? And so the art wasn't there. I mean, it just wasn't there. It's fascinating to see turtles as ninjas, and it was unique.
But it was enough to communicate the story well.
Exactly. And Peanuts. Why do we still know about Snoopy and Charlie Brown? They're the most rudimentary characters imaginable. Dilbert. Why do we know who Scott Adams is? Why do we know Dilbert? Catbert, Dogbert, the crazy boss with the horn hair. We know these guys because and the art was rudimentary. I mean, I could draw better than Scott Adams. So basically, I'm no two shakes. But the reason why is, he wasn't no Bill Waterston, but we know, but because Calvin and Hobbes was so awesome, the art just added to it. It was just like that extra grace note. But if Calvin and Hobbes hadn't been so great, then there's plenty of really beautiful comic strips out there that nobody remembers. But everybody knows Calvin and Hobbes. Okay, everybody has a Calvin and Hobbes book. I guarantee you right now, Daniel P. Riley has on his shelf back there a Calvin and Hobbes book.
I do.
I do, exactly. And so do I.
I also have multiple Garfield books. The old Garfield comic strips. Oh, so good.
Jim Davis and they were rudimentary. Okay. And the reason why is the writing is what brings it to life. You can deal with the art not being like top notch if you care about as a matter of fact, maybe the art is like finds its value from the characters. And I can't imagine Charlie Brown and any of not being that little round head with the little curly hair right there, and and the the yellow shirt with the stripe. I mean, I
Mhm.
can't imagine him being anything else. Why? Because that's Charlie Brown.
Yep.
And
very
whatever
true.
they see, whatever format they're going to see your character in, if they love your character, it's not going to matter because that's going to be your character, you know? I mean, everybody knows somebody who maybe not when you first looked at them, you didn't think they were the most attractive person on the planet. Okay. You know, but later on you loved them to death, and now you can't imagine them looking any other way. And you know, maybe they had like ears that stick out a little bit much, you know. But and but the bottom, but basically what I'm saying is the visual is just like icing on the cake to the writing.
Mhm.
If the writing's there, and your visual can be whatever your visual is. And what the we're getting the cart before the horse here. How many
A lot.
incredible 3D epics have we seen where it's, I mean, has anybody gone back and rewatched I can't remember the name off the top of my head, the blue guy, the blue alien thing.
Avatar.
Avatar. Does anybody is there anybody that rewatches that
I don't know.
frequently?
I haven't met anybody.
People don't talk about that movie, and it made like over $100 billion or something. I mean, it made like $1 billion. It's like one of the
That's
first
called
movies.
the popcorn. You know, it's there just for you to
Yeah.
munch on the popcorn and stare at for a couple of hours.
Well, it was
Not
so much
something you talk
spectacle
about
that
afterwards.
yeah, but it was so much spectacle that people would like literally break down after they got out because of the frame rate and because of the beauty of the art of the images that they saw. And it's like they come back in this bleak world, and it would, but nobody talks about the characters. I couldn't name you any of the characters. Navi, I think, is one of the characters. I don't know, but
Yeah, and I think the only reason I remember that name is because I believe that was the name of the fairy in Zelda, also Navi.
right, yeah, yeah.
So it's just that's just pattern
James
recognition.
Cameron kind of borrowed it quite a bit, including the whole entire. Right. He even stole the whole entire plot from Ferngully. You know, if you go back and watch that.
Which is a much better story.
Think about it, was
was.
much better story, right? But the thing is, it was spectacle. It was incredible spectacle, and people went and saw it in the theater, and then it made no impact on the culture, no impact whatsoever. And yet,
Yep.
everybody can quote you a line from Back to the Future.
True.
So, yeah. And why? Because we cared about Marty. We cared about his family. We cared, you know, when he went back and Doc Brown, you know, he went back in time, you know, tried to talk his
Scott.
Exactly. Exactly. But it was characters, right? You put those up side by side in modern context, and somebody not knowing either story would say, "Oh wow, that's beautiful," you know, that's boring looking, you know. But if you watch the movies side by side, one will have an impact on you, and one won't. And it's all comes down to you can have all the spectacle in the world, but unless people care about your characters, unless people are immersed in your world, unless people are riding along with the plot, nobody is going to care. Visually, Ghostbusters 2016 had some incredible visuals. It just did.
Yeah.
You know, the special effects crew did a good job on that movie. And yet, I hated every second of that movie when I watched it. And I even watched the extended to make sure that it wasn't just the editing. No, they really were that obnoxious. It was really that poorly written. It's horrible movie. I'll never rewatch it again. But I watch every once in a while I'll watch Afterlife. I'll put Afterlife on, because I cared about those characters. They gave me people to care about. And if you don't feel something when Ghost Egon shows up, I'm sorry. I'm
Dead
sorry.
inside.
I know. And I know it was cheap. I know, and there's some people that are like, "Oh, that was just so cynical." I don't care. I don't care the way they did it. The way they brought him back, and it was just so respectful. You could tell that they loved Harold Ramis and wanted him to be back, and they brought him back. And it's like, well, it's so cynical to use that, but you know what? Didn't care. I remember that image. I remember that scene in that movie, and I had tears rolling down my face. I was like, oh.
It came on the back of CGI young Leia at the end of Rogue One, and what was the other one?
Right,
another one many years ago when they first introduced it. It was like bringing some actor back from the dead with CGI, and it just unfortunately it just attacks the uncanny valley really hard. Yeah, that's what it was.
And Moff Tarkin back, and which that was actually a pretty decently written movie, but that was still pretty,
good story, likable characters that were well explained.
Mm-hmm. It's
can't really
pretty much
that.
Yeah, it's pretty much the last thing that I'll watch, except for Mandalorian season finale, season 2. Look it up. Anyway,
Luke,
like that's the Luke. That's my Luke. Not the guy drinking titty milk and throwing away a lightsaber. That's not my Luke. But once again, you knew that wasn't Luke. They're telling you this is Luke, and it's the actor. It's the same actor, but you knew that wasn't Luke Skywalker. That's
the story
not where
told
Luke
you
Skywalker
from
would have
the
wound
jump
up.
that it wasn't what you were looking for.
No. I'm going to subvert your expectations, which just means F you. Anybody that subverts your expectations means they're just saying F you. I'm not going to give you what you want.
Yeah.
And anytime I see somebody subverts my expectations, immediately I'm like, oh, you don't? Okay, well, F you too. I hate subverting expectations. Anyway, B-Dog. Hey, hello there, B-Dog. Let me see. Avatar was just a bunch of money thrown at FX. Yeah. All right. Agreed. No substance. Hey, what's up? Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Bunnies. Yo, Daniel. Yep. Good stuff. Right. Hi, Wookie. Parkours are in boots with the fur. It's cold outside. Yeah. Return of the parkour. Burr. Yeah. High affinity. Yeah, there you go. Anyway. All right. Anyway, but once again, in this comic book space that we're in, we're the mainstream is committed suicide. There's this really huge gap where DC and Marvel used to be. And they're still around, but they're a shell of their former self, and they're no longer a must buy. They're no longer, they're like, hey, look at this thing that we're doing, and it's just like, yeah, no, I don't care anymore. It's like that ex, okay? The ex keeps telling you, like, look who I'm dating, and you're just like, yeah, I don't care.
Okay.
Are you mental? We broke up. Anyway, exactly. It's like, may God have mercy on their soul. Do I need to talk to this guy? But anyway, hi, B-Dog, stupid autocorrect. But at the same time, so there's this big, huge gap that's just wide open, and people who love comics, they still love comics. But until somebody can step into that gap, they can step into that big wide open market. And when you look through the bookstores, if you're a novelist, you look through the bookstores, all it is just like, you know, it's all chick stuff. I mean, all of it's chick stuff. You know, you can just look at it and you're like, yeah, this is written for a chick, you know. But
well, you got to decide what your point is. That's always the first thing, in my opinion, is are you trying to make money or are you trying to tell a story?
Exactly.
And
exactly.
you know, when you pick something up, if the creator's intention was to make money or to tell a good story.
Oh yeah, you can tell. You can tell. Like I will maintain that outside of Lord of the Rings, the best the best fantasy trilogy is Dragonlance. That's I'll go to the grave on that. Why? And it was just the throwaway book of series. It was like something that was like to introduce the Dragonlance like RPG tabletop, and it was just like it was just basically a cash grab. But they didn't tell that writer that. They didn't tell that writer couple that. And they just wrote their epic. And
I think Weiss and Hickman initially, at least with the first one, I can't remember if it was Dragons of Twilight or not. It might have been, but at least with the first book, it was not part of an expanded universe model. They just wrote a story.
Right.
Everything after that, they had started expanding and making it into a business because that one book made such an impression that they saw a future in doing it.
Right. Exactly. And it just like, you know, it wasn't really supposed to be a hit. It was supposed to be like kind of like a commercial thing. And yet they did such a good job on it that people are like, I love these characters. I love this world. I want to live here. And the numbers were there. And so they're like, you guys want to write the rest of it? And so we get this awesome trilogy. And it's just incredible. It's incredible that, you know, that this exists in the world. But the reason why is because they wrote characters. They wrote a great plot, and you cared. And it's just like I keep telling people, it's wide open, and the way we're going to replace the mainstream is not through the visual. The mainstream's still got visual. They still got visual. They still can throw money at stuff that we can't. You know, the AI is not caught up yet, and so, you know, but if somebody comes up with something that's from the indie sphere, that's decently shot, but it has the writing and it has the characters, then it's going to take off. Halloween, the first movie, was basically a student film.
Yep.
And we still know about it because it was made on a shoestring budget. It was made with a bunch of you know, pretty much no-name actors that were kind of like find their way into the industry. And we need a killer mask. Well, let me get this William Shatner and turn it inside out, and you know, reverse the hair. And that was Mike Myers, you know. And it's just like, let's put him in an overcoat and well, it just looks so bad. I tell you what, let's not ever really see him. You know, let's just like shoot him behind a bush here or something like that. And let's reverse the image to where it looks like you're looking through eye holes. And the movie was great. And we still talk about it today, you know, and it had a microscopic budget. You know, there's movies that came out the same year with a way bigger budget, you know, and yet we don't talk about them. We don't remember them, but we remember this microscopic budgeted movie because it had a compelling story, had a compelling killer, and the suspense was there. It was well shot, and the soundtrack, but was basically the director was like, I got some musical skill. Let me see what I can come up with, because I don't have the budget for and so he gets on the piano and he's like, you know.
But that's the thing about what used to happen in, at least in the film industry, was they used their own skills to supplement what they could not afford to pay for, but they didn't
Right.
just excise the things that they needed to pay for in order to make it happen. It wasn't well, I can't afford a writer, so I'm going to try to write a script.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
They had the budget for that. It wasn't, I can't afford a good camera, so I'm gonna, record this on a little handheld.
Right.
It was here, I can do this part myself, so I'm going to do this part myself to save the money that I need in order to pay for this other stuff that I absolutely need.
Right. And so everything that the change is going to come, it's not going to come from what remains of the mainstream, the steaming pile that remains of the mainstream. It's going to come from the indosphere. It's going to come from like independent filmmakers. It's going to come from independent comic book makers. It's going to come from
it always has.
Yeah. And
everybody starts somewhere, and eventually, with enough consistency and dedication, can break into what is considered the mainstream. But most, if not all, I mean, there are some minor outliers here or there that have made great success from being part of the mainstream to begin with. There's always going to be nepotism and things like that with people, but the vast majority of intellectual properties begin as independent projects.
Well, what we're seeing right now, though, because of social media and because of the ability to release things to mass audiences and go completely around the middleman and not have to go through a major studio or sell it to a distributor, now, or go from studio, or go from like movie theater to movie theater to movie theater, and with your own, like, your own copy of it, and beg people to show it. We got this social media thing, and if it's good, like Oliver Anthony, it's been over a year now, but this guy just playing in the backwoods somewhere, singing his heart out about rich band north of Richmond. We're all feeling that, and it gets on the internet, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, he nailed it! Oh my God, listen to this." And next thing you know, he's got like over 1 million clicks, and like just a matter of a couple weeks, and now he's made enough money that he says he's going to be set the rest of his life, and he was talking about that a whole bunch of people came and tried to convince him that he needed them more than he needed them to get to the mainstream or get to the audience, and he turned them all down, and went straight to the audience himself, and that turned out to be the better path, and it's just like this whole entire apparatus is sitting here, and it no longer works. The whole entire creative community has moved on from the old way of doing things. You no longer have to go through a comic book company. You can have your own comic book company, and you can produce your own comic, like I'm doing right now, desperately trying to, with the artist out of Brazil, Barbusco Comics, and eventually I'll be able to get it. Eventually I'll get it out, but what's going to separate it from everything else and is going to be the writing, and right now Spectacle kind of is having its day. and everybody's like, wow, that's a great looking book. Well, what's it about? Oh, who's the character you like? Oh, but look at it. That's not going to last very long. Eventually,
Spectacle always has its place, though.
mhm.
I mean, especially now, information technology, while it's proliferated the ability for anyone to create,
Mhm.
the vast majority of it is going to be spectacle because it's the easiest route. You know,
Mhm.
you could scroll through YouTube or even TikTok if you're crazy and find like 10 million videos of 10 million different girls dancing to the same song.
Right.
And doing the exact same dance. You don't know who the hell they are.
Mm-mm.
And you don't care who they are.
Right.
But for 30 seconds or so, you're going to stop and watch them dance because it's entertaining. That's what spectacle is.
Yep. Who knows
And
the name of the Hawk Tuah girl? Anybody know the name of the Hawk
that's
Tuah
never
girl?
going to stop. Yeah. It's never going to stop. That's if you can tap that in your particular marketing, that'll give you the boost that you're probably looking for.
Right.
But what makes people come back to any of these particular videos or makes a person click on that person's username to take them to their actual channel is the content. That's why they call it content creation.
Right. Right. Let me get these right quick. I like Kroll. Kroll was made on a
Kroll's
shoestring
fantastic.
budget, and it's still an awesome movie. Yep. The Glaive. Anyway, the iconic.
I wanted to be the
it's as
Cyclops
iconic as the
when I
light.
grew up.
Yeah.
Because I'm that old. I was young when I watched
the Toy
that movie,
Story
and I was like,
trilogy was good. Yeah.
he's the coolest character ever. I want to be him.
Right. I need to rewatch Kroll. I hadn't seen it in a while. Writing is key. Yep. Infinity, the timey wimey limey. Yep. That's a great name.
Great name.
Well,
Legendary name.
so right. So yeah, you need curbside, and it does help to sell things on the internet or on social media to have some curbside. But once you get it in their hands, once you get it in their hands, you got to have something that's going to keep them coming back. Or, I mean, I've got books right now that I got the first book of, and it's amazing art, and I have no desire to revisit it. I have no desire to go back to that world. I have no desire to, and these are names you would know. I mean, 6-figure campaigns, like it's supposed to be massively successful, and yet it's just not there. The writing's not there, and so it's like, if I want an art book, I've got plenty of art books. It's like, oh wow, I like your art, so let me get this art book, so I can occasionally, through your art, and but if you spend the time and spend the money and work on improving your script as much as possible with possible editorial help, and maybe do one less print, and to afford an editor, you will increase your ability to bring people back. And bringing people back is where it's all out, where it's at.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to be a one-hit wonder. And
Nope.
And yeah, maybe it's a hit, but those tend to go by the wayside. It's the people that have consistency over time that are the ones that are remembered, the ones that make cultural impact, and the ones that will be that will live beyond the moment of time that they're in. George Lucas, we know who that is. Why? Because consistency over time, until it went to Disney, and then anyway. And why did it die at Disney? Writing. The writing died anyway.
It's true. Although those
The
the
spectacle's
prequels
still there.
the prequels were a little iffy.
Yeah. They had moments, but yeah, the prequels are not, not what I call good cinema.
They're not awful, but they're okay. That's
Right.
the line, you know.
Right.
Still up here a little bit.
Right. Well, the first three movies, we'll just say the first three movies. We'll give them credit for the first.
OT is
yeah.
beautiful.
Which,
Yep.
yeah, there you go, original trilogy. Anyway, you're right. Lucas is horribly inconsistent. Right, you're right. But
He's also very
anyway,
that's a factor too.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Anyway, so that's been Cooper for Telepathic Bunny Comics here with Mr. Riley. I'm sure I don't want to keep him too much longer. I'm sure he's got 30,000 things to do. And writers to make cry. It's a hobby.
And ultimately make better too.
They make better and make better, tough love, that's
Always.
how it works. Always. Anyway, thanks for riding shotgun with me, Daniel. I hope somebody got the nudge that they need. But anyway,
get the message, folks.
Get the message. The writing is all that matters. Anyway, all right. So
writing's the foundation. Always will be.
Yep. And if you don't have a foundation, the whole thing falls.
Doesn't matter how pretty it is if you can't stand up.
Doesn't matter. First breeze that comes along. Anyway. All right. Well, anyway, that's been good for Telepathic Bunny Comics here with Daniel P. Riley from Whimsyland. I pinned his link tree in the chat. So if you want to check out all the stuff he has to offer, and maybe I'll find his services. Services. Sorry, not surfaces.
Well, right
surfaces.
now my website's being renovated, so it'll be back up soon, hopefully.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, just DM him on X, whatever.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
that's where I live on the Twix.
On the Twix, where we're all at. Anyway, that's been good for Telepathic Bunny Comics, and we'll talk to you next time. Remember, follow the Wabbit, and see you later. Bye, everybody. Hopefully, it'll let me end. No, it's been slow. Okay, now everybody. Bye, everybody. All right.